You check your phone again. You send another "I'll figure it out later" text. Another postponed plan. Another half-finished project collecting dust. You wonder if you'll ever show up the way you need to. Maybe you're scared of getting it wrong. Maybe you're still waiting for someone to tell you what comes next. This is how a generation of men drop out of responsibility. Jung called them the eternal boys, the Puer Aeternus. Men trapped in a waiting room they built themselves, rehearsing a life they never perform. Marie-Louise von Franz watched them drift through relationships and jobs like tourists, never unpacking, never staying. And the cost? It shows up in your friendships, your partnerships, your own reflection when you realize you're doing the same thing. Today, I want to show you why so many men remain boys in adult bodies, what keeps them there, and the single practice that starts breaking the pattern. Let's begin our journey with what Jung discovered about the architecture of masculine development. Jung believed we inherit patterns, not memories or preferences, but living structures he called archetypes that shape how we think, feel, and move through the world. These are psychic organs that connect our conscious choices back to instinctual roots. For masculinity, this means two sets of blueprints, the boy and the man. Each comes with energies, drives, and shadows. The boy archetypes prepare you for growth. They give you curiosity, heroism, and the courage to break from what's safe. But they're designed to be outgrown. When they linger past their season, they distort. You become the man who chases thrills but runs from commitment, who dreams big but executes small, who confuses intensity with intimacy. Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette mapped this clearly. The divine child becomes the king, the precocious child becomes the magician, the Oedipal child becomes the lover, and the hero becomes the warrior. Each transition requires a death, a letting go of the previous role. In traditional societies, elders held this passage. Boys entered sacred space, faced ordeals that broke the ego's grip, and emerged reorganized around a deeper center. The rituals weren't symbolic gestures. They restructured consciousness. Without them, we're left with pseudo-initiations, boot camps that harden adolescent grandiosity, gang codes that reward violence, corporate ladders that mistake control for strength. You see it everywhere. Dealers and bullies. Hotshot executives who wound instead of build. Fathers who vanish when presence is required. Moreover, in our modern era, men are checking out of life in droves because of the strong pressures from a world that pushes them further into the ground each day without any sign of hope. Von Franz identified the pattern that ties it all together: the mother complex. You meet her in two forms. The first is the man who seeks masculinity in other men while remaining bound to his mother's approval. He orbits strong figures, hoping their strength will rub off, but he never claims his own. The second is the Don Juan, a type of person who chases the perfect woman through serial partners, idealizing her until the illusion cracks, then moving on. Both share the same wound, the fantasy of an all-providing mother who makes life effortless. Von Franz called it the provisional life. Jobs are temporary because the real career is about to start. Relationships are held loosely because the right woman hasn't appeared yet. Cities are pit stops on the way to somewhere better. The pattern reveals itself in language. I'm just doing this until. Once I get that sorted, then I'll. Real life is always around the corner. Commitment feels like a trap because it demands you choose this job, this partner, this place over the perfect version you've been protecting. You might recognize the feeling. that pull toward the next opportunity, the next city, the next relationship where things will finally click. It's not restlessness, it's refusal and procrastination. A refusal to let the weight of choice shape you into someone specific, someone who can fail, someone who might discover their ordinary. The provisional life preserves freedom, but it kills growth. Next, we'll look at what initiation was supposed to do and why its absence creates the crisis we're living through now. Real initiation creates the symbolic death of the boy ego, ordeal that strips pretense, vision or cleansing that reconnects you to something larger. Social reintegration as a man accountable to community. Every traditional society built this passage, not because boys were defective, but because manhood doesn't happen automatically. Moore and Gillette argue we've lost this entirely. The initiated man has vanished from Western culture, leaving a vacuum. Weak or absent fathers compound the crisis. Boys grow up without maps, without mirrors, without men who can show them how to transform boy energy into man energy. So they fake it. They adopt dominance as strength, mistake cruelty for toughness, confuse control with leadership. Patriarchy isn't mature masculinity. It's boy psychology dressed in authority. The absence shows up as fragmentation. Parts of your personality living independent, chaotic lives. The hero in you takes reckless risks, while the coward hides from conflict. The tyrant demands perfection, while the weakling collapses at criticism. Without initiation, these shadows don't integrate. They war, and the battlefield is your relationships, your work, your sense of self. Jung described what should happen instead. When inner opposites clash, a third thing can emerge. The child symbol that mediates and heals. Not the boy child clinging to mother, but the archetypal child that signals wholeness, a new center that unites conscious aims with unconscious sources. This isn't theory. People report it as an experience, a sudden sense of groundedness, of being led by something wiser than ego. Modern life offers no such passage. Instead, you get college hazing that mimics ordeal without transformation. Military boot camps that build unit cohesion but often harden trauma. Corporate cultures that reward ruthlessness and obedience. These aren't initiations, they're stress tests that sort people into those who obey and those who break, without offering either group access to their mature masculine potential. What's lost is calmness, generativity, the ability to hold space for others without needing to dominate or collapse. Moore and Gillette call this the inner world of masculine potentials. It's not a moral code you memorize. It's a shifting of behavior that happens when the boy dies and the man is born. For mature man psychology to emerge, there must be a death. Symbolic, psychological, spiritual, the form varies, but the event is non-negotiable. The boy ego, with its demands for approval, comfort, and effortless success, has to die. Not be managed or negotiated with. Die. You see the need everywhere. The man who can't commit because committing feels like losing himself. The man who starts projects but never finishes because completion means judgment. The man who keeps relationships shallow because depth requires vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like annihilation. This is where the courage to face mortality enters. Not physical death, though that awareness helps. The death of who you thought you had to be. The provisional identities, the fantasies of specialness. The belief that real life starts once conditions are perfect. All of it has to go. And the boy ego fights this with everything it has because, from its perspective, this is extinction. Modern men sense this, but have no structure to hold it. so they create their own ordeals, extreme sports, punishing work schedules, relationships they let combust. These are pseudo-deaths. They deliver adrenaline, sometimes transformation, but without the sacred container and elder guidance, they often just reinforce the pattern. The real death is quieter. It happens when you stop waiting and start choosing, when you take the job that's good enough and make it meaningful, when you commit to the woman who's real instead of perfect, when you plant yourself in a place and let it shape you. This is not resignation. It is the conscious choice to manifest a new self by tempering yourself on the flame. But knowing what needs to happen and actually doing it are two different things. That's where von Franz's practical cure comes in. Von Franz watched men cycle through jobs and relationships, always preparing, never launching. Her prescription was practical. Work, not just any work, but work you follow where your energy naturally flows. The task isn't to find the perfect calling. It's to start working on something, then push through the first wall. That wall arrives predictably. The initial excitement fades. Rainy mornings come. The work feels boring, hard, heavier than you thought. This is the moment. Most men quit here, returning to the provisional stance, telling themselves this wasn't the right fit after all. Von Franz said the cure happens when you keep going anyway. When you do the work on days it doesn't thrill you. Perseverance at that juncture rewires the pattern. You stop being the boy waiting for inspiration and become the man who builds through resistance and discipline. This connects to courage differently than hero myths suggest. It's not about grand gestures or dramatic sacrifice. It's about refusing to yield to fear and mockery when you're taking first steps. Healthy masculine self-esteem includes pain tolerance. Not the bravado kind that performs toughness, but the quiet kind that keeps showing up when it's awkward, when you're clumsy, when people might laugh. Families and communities can help by protecting those early efforts instead of ridiculing them. That protection lets initiative gradually toughen into character. Integration also demands reconciling your inner masculine and feminine. Jung called this the hermaphroditic uniting symbol. Each person carries both, like yin and yang. For men, this means relating consciously to the anima, the feminine within, without projecting her entirely onto women. When that reconnection happens internally, relationships can carry projections more lightly. You stop needing a woman to be the goddess or the mother and start seeing her as a person. The provisional life loses its grip because you're no longer waiting for the perfect feminine to complete you. In the end, you fully enter and accept. Time, space, weight, and duration. You become someone who can be counted on. Someone who generates rather than consumes. Someone who protects rather than exploits. To become that man, the boy ego within must be transformed. Now, let's talk about the practical side of transforming into the mature man. You've heard the theory, you've seen the pattern. The question is, what do you do? Not 5 things. 1. Here's the single practice that begins turning the tide. Choose one area where you've been living provisionally and commit to it for 90 days. Pick the job or career you've been treating as temporary, the relationship you've been holding at arm's length, the city you've been planning to leave, the creative project you've been working on for years. Choose one and tell yourself, for 90 days, this is not provisional. This is my life. Then take action. Here's a 3-step maturation process to help you get started. Step 1. Make the small upgrades you've been postponing. Have the conversation you've been avoiding. Invest in the tools or training that signal you're here for real. Step 2. When you hit the boring wall, and you will, don't quit. That's the moment the pattern breaks. Keep pushing on, even during the days where it doesn't thrill you. Step 3. Each week, ask yourself, what did I need as a boy that I never got? The likely answers are reassurance, permission to rest, being asked how you felt. Write down what comes up, then give it to yourself now. There is no shame here. You are a human being. Practice this permission triad once a day. I didn't fail. I was learning. But now I get to choose. Say it out loud if you can. Let it rewire the shame loop that keeps you provisional. You're not defective. You weren't shown the way. That's okay. But staying stuck now is a choice, one that you can change any day. The key is consistency, not intensity. 90 days of small, grounded actions will teach you more about mature masculine energy than any retreat or book. You'll learn what it feels like to stop fleeing, to let weight shape you, to build something that lasts. You weren't given initiation. No elders held space. No rituals broke the boy ego and reorganized you around a deeper center. That wasn't your fault. But you're holding this knowledge now. And knowledge makes you responsible. Not to fix everything at once, but to stop running, to stop waiting, to stop treating your life as the rehearsal for a performance that never comes. You're not broken, you're uninitiated. And initiation, in the absence of elders, becomes a choice you make every day. The boy wanted magic. The man knows its work, ordinary, repetitive, unglamorous work that compounds into a life you don't need to escape from. The provisional stance promised freedom. It delivered isolation. The initiated stance requires sacrifice. It delivers presence. You didn't have the ritual, but you still have the choice. The choice to start a journey that you can look back on one day as your origin story. So, who will you become? Thank you for joining me on this exploration into the psychology of the man-child and the path to mature masculinity. If this resonated, please share your reflections in the comments below and subscribe for more journeys into the depths of practical psychology, philosophy, and personal development. Until next time.